What's up, everybody? It's Hank here with Break MMA. Really excited about this podcast because it's very rare that I actually get to have other journalists. I'm not really a journalist. I do a lot of research and media as far as like interviews. I've had Eric Anders on the show. I don't know if have you ever seen my show?
No, I haven't. This is new to me.
Yes, well, this is Nick Baldwin, by the way, MMA journalist, Nick Baldwin on Twitter. You can look him up. Great interviews. I've looked up some of your interviews as well.
Thank you.
I've had Eric Anders on the show recently. Just had Elias Theodoro the other day talk about their fight. Jason the Kid Knight. Juan Adams, the new heavyweight from Dana White's Tuesday Night Contender. A few. I'm getting up there, but a lot of it is just Twitter, reaching the people out on Twitter and seeing if they want to talk to me.
Yeah, I mean, as long as you, hey, just people good. And then you build up a list of contacts, and the interview amount starts increasing. So yeah, props to you. For reaching out, because I know some people just don't go for it, and in this sport, that's what you got to do. If you want to, I don't know what your intention is, whether you want to work in MMA full time, part time, just on the side, just for fun. But you got to go for it. You got to work hard and reach out because there's nothing to lose by reaching out to Elias Theodoro. So got to go for it.
Definitely, that's what I've got a few other friends like me that are kind of just small town people that do this kind of stuff, and it's crazy to me when any real MMA personality, or especially somebody like Elias or Eric or somebody like that, talks to me and takes their time to talk to me. But like you said, you just got to go for what's the worst he's going to say? What's the worst he's going to tell me? No, man, sorry. You know what I mean? That's even if that, I'll be like, I understand completely. You're a professional fighter. I'm sure you got a lot on your plate and a lot to prepare for. But it's just those ones where they say yes that make it extra cool.
Absolutely.
I don't know if you watch Ink Master. Do you watch Ink Master on Paramount?
I don't know.
I've had a lot of people from there on it too. But all right, we'll jump right into it, man. Our first topic, we got to get into this because I'm pretty curious to know your position on it. Ben Askren traded. First off, is it 100% official? Did they announce it like 100% done or no?
It's not a done deal, but according to Ariel Helwani of ESPN, it is very close. I know he said earlier today on Twitter that their hope is to finalize it by today. So, we're right. It's getting late night. So it seems like it'll be done in the week, as long as everything to plan.
If Ariel reports it, it's solid. Most of the time, Ariel's the best. So
yeah, it's true. Yeah, you're right.
If it gets done, if Ariel says it, it's true. What's your first off? This has never happened. We've seen guys leave Bellator and go to the UFC, or we've seen guys leave the UFC and go to Bellator. But that's from where you get cut. Your contract is expired, and the UFC doesn't want you. Like in the case with Gegard Mousasi, a lot of people think Gegard chose Bellator, but UFC didn't want him anymore. The UFC made it clear we're not interested in having you anymore. So then he went to Bellator and is a world champion, but. For example, like Eddie Alvarez, Michael Chandler. I'd love to see Michael Chandler in the UFC. I'd love to see Michael Venom Page in the UFC. But sometimes those things don't always pan out. This is kind of a historic moment where the UFC and one championship come to agreement and said, okay, I will trade you Demetrius Mighty Mouse Johnson, the definitely 125-pound GOAT, nobody better. He did just lose by split decision, but even that split decision, going out on a split decision isn't that bad. He didn't get knocked out.
It was a close fight.
Yeah, he didn't get knocked out. He lost. I had him losing the fight. He lost, but he didn't get knocked out, didn't get submitted. So what was your first initial thought when you seen the tweet? I'm sure we were all like, what? Mighty Mouse for Ben Askren? What was your thought? First off, would you do it? Would you trade Ben Askren for Mighty Mouse?
Well, okay. So the thing, there's a lot to say about this quote unquote trade. My first reaction was pretty much what everybody's reaction is. Whoa, like this is surprising. This is something that's never happened before. It's new territory for us MMA fans, for us MMA media, for us just MMA. Again, sorry about the dog in the background.
You're good.
Hopefully, that won't continue for much longer. But this is brand new for us, so it comes as a surprise. The thing now, I guess jumping into who won this trade, and I guess the trade aspect does make it very interesting because, as you said, I mean, we've never seen this. As you said, we've seen Eddie Alvarez go from Bellator to the UFC. We've seen a ton of UFC fighters go to Bellator. Ryan Bader, Phil Davis, as you mentioned, Gegard Mousasi. The list goes on and on and on over the past few years, but nothing quite like this, where, as you said, they're in their contracts, and then the two promotions get along. They actually agree. Okay, we'll let our guy go, release him from his contract, and vice versa. You do the same, then we'll sign, each other's, fighters. As far as who won this trade, I think this is actually a big win for one championship because we all remember about a year ago, a little less than a year ago, Ben Askren retired from the sport of MMA. Now, he said right after retiring, I will only come back if I get to fight, if I basically get to prove that I'm the best welterweight on the planet. Now, will he ever be able to do so? I don't know. He trains with Tyron Woodley, the current UFC welterweight champion. They will not fight. So that's not a fight we're going to see happen. So how do you do that? Well, UFC is better than nothing. It seemed to me, anyways, that Askren was only coming back if it was in the UFC. And so one championship really lost nothing because he probably was never going to fight for one again. So what are they losing? They had him under contract, but if he wasn't going to fight, they're really not losing anything.
Right.
Now, the UFC... you could argue it's also a win for the UFC because I kind of think they've been looking to get rid of Demetrius Johnson for a number of years now. I think they've been looking to get rid of the flyweight division as a whole for a few years now, and it seems like that might be the path the UFC is going down pretty soon. So you could argue that it's a win for the UFC. They're also getting what they want. I mean, Ben Askren. A lot of people have wanted to see Ben Askren in the UFC for many, many years, but ultimately, I don't think it's a big W for the UFC because I still think Demetrius Johnson is a good fighter to have on your roster. He's arguably the best fighter on the planet, even still.
Top
I know
five
he
for
lost,
sure. Top five for sure.
top for sure. Pound for pound, top five for sure. One of the greatest we've ever seen. One of the best skilled fighters we've ever seen in the sport's history. I don't think giving up that fighter, whether or not he talks, now in this case he doesn't, I don't think letting that fighter go is a good move. Ben Askren, on the other end, now he will add some depth to the UFC's welterweight division, which happens to not be tremendous right now. I know it was different, but Woodley, Wonderboy 2, not so great. No one like Colby Covington, it seems. Kamaru Usman's up there, but it doesn't seem so stacked. There's a lot of welterweights. It just doesn't seem so top heavy as we were used to. Askren will add some, but do casual fans know who Ben Askren is? I don't think so. I don't know.
Nope.
Ben Askren add to UFC? I don't know how much. How much does DJ add to one? A lot. Because I personally don't regularly watch one championship. It's a matter of, hey, it's on overnight. Hey, I'm just not intrigued by their cards. I don't recognize many fighters. Angela Lee, Christian Lee, they have their fair. Bibiano Fernandez, they have their fair share of top fighters, but not names that really spark my interest. Make me watch. Eddie Alvarez, Demetrius Johnson. I'm watching the championship. This is tons and tons of fans want the championship. A big W for one, and a big W for Demetrius Johnson. She hasn't been happy with see, and ask for a long. It's a W for every. You look one way, and a W for everybody. But you see if you look at it another way. That's what I think.
I 100% agree with you. I would not do it if I'm the UFC and one calls me. I'm sitting at the UFC desk just chilling, and one calls me and says, "Hey, I'll give you Ben Askren for Demetrius Mighty Mouse Johnson." I laugh in their face and hang up. I mean, that's like. Ben Askren is not that popular. I'm a balls-deep hardcore MMA fan from way back in the day. And I don't watch one either. I watch Bellator, I watch UFC, a little bit of LFA. But as far as anything else, no. And that's about it really for other people too out there. You know how it is. A lot of people just stick with the UFC. But I would not do it. Ben Askren is not a draw. I mean, he's popular, but like you said, the casuals, the people, the Conor McGregor era that know nothing but famous people, like Sage Northcutt somewhat because he's of his face, and Paige a little bit because she was on Dancing with the Stars and a whole bunch of other shit. But it's somebody who knows you from nothing other than popularity. They're not going to know who Ben Askren is. They're not going to know anything about him. And he has no losses. He is to me, he's a simplified, more boring version of George St. Pierre. Really, really, really good wrestler with limited striking, good fancy strike. He's put some people away, I'm sure, with some strikes. But he's a ground and pound mauler. He's a Khabib style wrestler. Holds you down for 25 minutes or 15 minutes, three or 5 minute rounds. Just holds you down. From what I've seen, I haven't watched many of his fights, but a lot of his highlight reels are wrestling. Demetrius Johnson is top 5 in the world, top 3, one of those. So you could say one. I mean, he lost to Dominic Cruz and
Brad Pickett.
Brad Pickett beat him. Brad Pickett, Dominic Cruz, and Cejudo. That's it. I mean, and he beat Cejudo once, so they're 1-1. To me, it's crazy they didn't have one more. They didn't do Cejudo Johnson again because it's 1-1. You kind of have to. It's one of those. It's 1-1. You should. And as far as Askren, I want to get your thought on this real quick. And I agree 100%. I would not do it. Just like you said, you wouldn't do it. In my opinion, we've seen on Twitter, I'm sure you've seen Ben Askren calling out Darren Till and all these other people. My suggestion, what I think would be awesome, introduction fight, UFC pay-per-view, put it as the show opener, Ben Askren versus Robbie Lawler. How does that sound?
Not one that had crossed my mind. I don't mind the matchup. It's just, it's striker versus wrestler, grappler. I mean, that's what it is. Robbie Lawler, the thing is, we don't know if he's healthy. I know he had the knee injury from the RDA fight last December, so where he's at, I don't know. But it's a good fight. I mean, the thing is, I know I did say the welterweight division not super stacked there. There's a lot of fighters in that 10 to 15, 10 to 20 range. I know I saw suggestions you give him Jorge Masvidal. You could go there, give him Kamaru Usman. If you want to give him Colby Covington, if Woodley's still up, could do that. There's a lot of options by now. I know he's looking to Darren Till a little bit. There's so many good fights for us right now. So to me, it matters. Like Robbie Lawler is great, but so is Darren Till. Steve Boyd is Jorge. So there's a lot of reference for Askren.
Yeah, but do you? He's mostly a wrestler, he's mostly a wrestler. I don't think you give him somebody in the top 5 automatically. He's won a few, but let's say you give him. I don't know the ranking. I don't have the rankings right here, but Robbie's probably in the top 10. I'm surely in the top 10. Let's say you give him Robbie or Cowboy Oliveira is fighting Gunnar Nelson. Let's say Cowboy starches Gunny, which I expect. Let's say Cowboy Oliveira. And I think you give him somebody like 10 to 7 rank, and then you go 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 if he can win. I don't think you throw him. I don't think you throw him Khabib first. And there's been a lot of talk about him, Khabib. Khabib's a 155er, and he's got his own bullshit going on right now anyway. He obviously could make 170 and would be pretty good size, but Ben Askren, to me, this is a huge loss to the UFC. One got Mighty Mouse. People are going to watch that just off Mighty Mouse alone, let alone you mentioned Eddie Alvarez. Huge signings. Eddie Alvarez, those wars with Michael Chandler, it beat Rafael Dos Anjos for a world title, beat Pettis, beat Gilbert Melendez, fought Conor McGregor, fought Dustin Poirier twice. I mean, Eddie Alvarez is a legend for sure. So is Mighty Mouse. He's a legend in MMA. And one got a legend for somebody that, like you said, that might not have even fought again. He retired, wasn't interested in fighting, and one could have come to him and been like, oh, hey, we'll give you one more fight. And he could have said, no, I'm just going to sit out and wait. I've won all my fights. I'm undefeated. I'm champ. I'm good. Instead, he goes to the UFC, and it's like you're winning a losing battle. If you're the UFC, you traded a great legend in Mighty Mouse for somebody who I guarantee you, if you put Ben Askren versus anybody, name anybody on the roster, Ben Askren versus Conor, Ben Askren versus Nate, Ben Askren versus anybody, he will not do no 2 million, 1 million buys. He's not that.
Well, and to be fair, Demetrius Johnson certainly doesn't do 1 or 2 million buys either. So I don't want to downplay Ben Askren, the magnitude of that signing to the UFC. Ben Askren, he's been after the UFC for years. He's been talked about for years. My only concern is, do casual fans know him? Probably not. Now, hardcore fans really do. this is a big signing. This is not a small signing whatsoever. This is a big signing for mixed martial arts and the UFC. But when you have Demetrius Johnson on the other side, is it the right move? That's where
And
I pause a little
I
bit.
definitely don't want to sound like a Ben Askren hater. You know, I love he's undefeated. Any fighter that whether they're 1-0 or 50-0 that can stand up and say, "Hey, I've never lost." That's something. He's never lost. He's a champion. He's a great wrestler. The best style in MMA to start with is a wrestling base, and he is a phenomenal grappler. But as far as it's like a George St. Pierre thing. George St. Pierre, great, one of the greatest of all time, top 5, top 10, most certainly, top 5 for sure, just up there with Anderson and John Jones. But let's be honest, some of his fights were boring. He just laid on a bunch of people. You know, like the fight with Nick Diaz laid on him for 25 minutes. The fight with Dan Hardy, you know, but other than a little bit of a twitch here and there, like when he finished Matt Hughes early in his career and when he finished Bisping his last fight, George St. Pierre is one of those guys, kind of like Khabib, until Khabib got that finish on Conor and a few highlights here and there with some slams on some guys. And, besides mauling guys, which he does, he's not that exciting. He's not a Nate Diaz where they stalk you and, they're flipping you off and the crowd's getting into it, and he's chasing you down and punching you with multiple punches. Or somebody like a Robbie Lawler who swarms you like a dog and just punches. To me, it's like you're trading Demetrius, who isn't a huge star, but he's exciting, for somebody who is a decision fighter who might not be as, you know what I mean, as exciting. He's not that exciting of a fighter.
Yeah, no, you're definitely onto something. I don't know how much the styles really mean. How much the styles mean here, because let's be honest, Khabib, he's a bigger draw than, say, Demetrius Johnson. Who's a more exciting fighter in the eyes of most fans? Probably DJ. So styles, you can be an exciting fighter and sell less than a quote-unquote boring fighter. So styles don't always mean everything, but when you really look at it, Demetrius Johnson, the face of a division, Ben Askren, a guy who, as you said, might not have fought for one. So what do they have to lose? Again, one championship probably wins the deal. But still, I mean, UFC wanted to get rid of DJ. I shouldn't say that. They didn't necessarily want to get rid of DJ. They didn't say that. Dana never said that word for word. But it seems like they don't care too much about Demetrius Johnson. So
it's kind of like Bellator calling up and being like, "Hey, UFC, we'll give you MVP, Michael Venom Page, but you're going to give us Robert Whittaker, your champion." It's kind of like that. Would you trade Robert Whittaker? MVP's flashy, stylish, exciting, fun as hell, great fighter, undefeated, but would you really trade him for a legit world champion who's proven himself? Demetrius has proven himself. Not saying Ben hasn't, but he's never fought UFC caliber, but we might, do a follow-up interview 6 months from now or a year from now, and Ben be the champion, be 25-0, and beat, everybody, and have both belts. He could be that guy, but
he could be, yeah.
I don't see him being that guy pay-per-view wise.
Yeah, I mean, I think that sort of goes to your idea of maybe you do give him a bit of a warm-up fight. Now, I know other people have been talking about GSP versus Ben Askren. I like the fight. I don't mind that whatsoever. It's been talked about for a little while now, but I don't think you do the GSP fight right away. Now, I'm not too opposed to Ben Askren versus top 5 because I think he can definitely compete against the best of the best at welterweight. So you give him a Colby Covington, a Darren Till, Kamaru Usman, I'm all for that. I know you said 7-10. I would be okay with the top 5, but don't give him the big fight because GSP Askren, if Askren has already fought in the UFC and fans are introduced, UFC fans are introduced to Ben Askren for the first time already, then GSP Askren's a bigger fight. So if that's the way they want to do this, then you do give him a warm-up. Otherwise, it doesn't really matter to me.
So there was also a lot of controversy. It was the craziest and most watched pay-per-view of all time for UFC, and it was ranked among the most watched pay-per-views period ever. Dana, according to Dana, you know how Dana talks, but with 2.4, somewhere in there, million buys, that's a lot of damn buys. Conor Khabib, first off, who was your pick to win?
I picked Conor.
By KO, I'm assuming in the first 2 rounds?
Yep, first, right around second round or so.
I had Khabib by second round submission by Kimura, and he got it. Of course, he won by submission, but it wasn't a Kimura, and it was in the fourth. But he dominated him. You know, I thought that was a very horrible matchup for Conor, and it proved to be true. Conor can't deal with Khabib, and that's nothing to be ashamed of. Nobody has. You know, he's undefeated. I don't think there's one person in the UFC that beats Khabib. People bring up Tony Ferguson. People bring up Kevin Lee. The only reason they bring up Tony Ferguson and Kevin Lee is because we haven't seen it yet. Think back to 6 months ago. People said Conor will starch him. Conor will maul him. Conor will show him what another level of striking is. And he not only beat Conor, but dropped him with striking and dominated him. Let's go back to when Kevin Lee fought Tony Ferguson. Kevin Lee held Tony Ferguson down for a round and beat him up. If Kevin Lee can do that, I promise you, and you know, so can Khabib. I do not see one person in the UFC beating Khabib. Do you agree with that?
It's a tough statement to say because
a lucky punch, a lucky kick, one punch, one kick, it's over. You know, like when he fought Edson. I actually bet on Edson when he fought Edson and Khabib because those leg kicks and those switch kicks are the fastest fucking kicks in MMA, and I thought that he could chop him down at the base and, you know, get some kind of a leg kick stoppage or something like that because he had 3 of them prior, but obviously, you know, Khabib won. I don't think there's anybody in the UFC that beats him.
You're probably right. It's still tough to say it, but you know, Khabib versus anybody at lightweight, whether it's a McGregor rematch, Ferguson fight, you know, Kevin Lee, Edson, you know, although I don't know why they'd fight Barboza, Khabib, but yeah, anybody he's paired up against at 155, he would be the betting favorite. Now, if he moves up to 170, fights a GSP, fights a Ben Askren, fights a, you know, whoever, then maybe we're talking a bit different. But at 155, he'd be the betting favorite in every fight.
So what was your initial... Oh, we lost signal there for a second. I'll call him right back. Oh, you there?
Yep. Well, not sure what happened there, but...
Yeah, it was weird. We got it right back. What was your initial reaction when Khabib submits him? It wasn't even really like a rear naked choke. It was more like a neck crank. It was kind of on the jaw and cranking. Conor was tired, and you could tell Conor was tired, and the end was near, kind of. After Conor did have a phenomenal third round. Real briefly, I thought Conor did great. I thought Conor did the best of anybody against Khabib. People bring up Al Iaquinta. Al Iaquinta got beat the fuck up for 5 rounds. Conor won third round with striking, and like normally with Khabib's opponents like Edson and Al, Edson's face was swollen, he was bloody, and he just looked like he was mauled. Al's face was swollen out to here, his lips was puffed out and bloody. At the end of the first round, you know, Khabib laid on him, but Conor, he didn't take no punches. I think I've seen a stat where Khabib only hit him 7 or 17 times in the first round. You know, nothing real significant. He just kind of maintained control, top position against the fence. But Conor did not look beat up. Like, even after the 4th round and all this shit happened, Conor didn't look that bad. He had a little mouse under one of his eyes, but he did not look like the normal Khabib opponent. Beat up, black and blue, tired, swollen. I thought Conor did amazing against Khabib. He comes out in the first, and nothing really happens. Khabib just lays on him. The second, he gets smashed. I mean, Khabib drops him with that overhand, which starts it all, and then smashes him on the ground. I was sitting there watching it, ordered it, and watched it. I thought it could have been stopped. I'm sure you've went back and watched it a few more times since then. In that second round, Khabib was pounding on him towards the ending of that second round. And there was one point where Herb Dean, I believe, was the ref. He leaned in and he told Conor, do something or I'm going to stop it at one point because Khabib was mauling him. And then right as soon as he said that, Khabib dropped his legs over and went to half guard and kind of just laid on him. I think Khabib wanted it to last longer. But he survives the second round. They come out in the third. Conor looks good. He still looks like he's got some pop on his punches. Towards the beginning, you know, right as soon as they come out. Starts tagging him up and stuffed every takedown that round. And was popping him a little bit, but you could tell he was fatigued. But so was Khabib. You don't go that hard for that long without getting, you know, a little tired. So the fourth round, Conor easily won that third round. Pretty good. And in my brain at that time, I'm thinking Conor McGregor's fixing to win this fight. Because I watched Nate Conor 2 at UFC 202, where Conor had a great 2 rounds, and then the third was really bad, and then the fourth. And then he kind of picks it up later in the fight. He's good. The first 2, he's really good. The third and the fourth, he kind of fades. And then midway through the fourth and the fifth, he kind of regains a little bit of stamina. I could tell at the end of that third round when the bell rang and they went to the corner, I looked over and I was like, he's fixing to he's fixing to beat Khabib by decision. He's going to outwork him. He's going to stuff his takedowns in this fourth and box him up. He's going to stuff his takedowns in this fifth and box him up, and he's going to win. And they come out, Khabib drags him down, he's tired, and the choke happened pretty quick. I mean, they were doing a little bit of hand motions, and then it was over. Khabib pushes him down and says something to him, trying to, obviously still hyped after the fight just ended, throws his mouthpiece towards the fence, runs over and jumps straight at Dylan Dennis. What was going on in your brain while all this was happening? Because I was thinking, holy fuck. As a fan, I love MMA. It was entertaining. It was unexpected. It's any wrestling fan or football fan, when you go to a live event or when you watch something, you want something to surprise you. You want to see the unexpected. I thought it was unexpected and surprising and shocking, but at the same time, bad for the sport, and it makes us look bad. If you love MMA, it's not good. What was your initial reaction to all this?
I was just confused. I didn't really know what was going on. The commentators, John Anik, Joe Rogan, Cruz, they're trying to figure out what's going on at the same time. We're kind of in that process together. No one really knows what's going on.
Jaw drop.
What's that?
I'm sure you, just like everybody else, had your jaw drop. Just it was an oh my god moment for sure.
It really was surprising. In hindsight, maybe we should have seen something like this coming. Khabib and Conor, they don't like each other. We know that. Did we know they didn't like each other this much? I don't know. Maybe we probably, maybe we should have known that. I know Dana talked a lot about, upping the security at the T-Mobile Arena in Vegas for the card, but it just wasn't enough. So, yeah, I mean, the brawl was crazy what happened after, Khabib's guys getting arrested, then not arrested because Conor didn't want to press charges. Just the commission now, giving Khabib half his money back, still indefinitely suspending both fighters. Like, just everything surrounding this brawl was crazy, was surprising. As you said, I didn't expect it, didn't see it coming, never predicted, is there going to be a brawl after? I mean, maybe had I thought about it, maybe I said, yeah, there will be. But, just everything is crazy. But as you said, it's not a great look for the sport. It makes us look, like how it makes the sport look how a lot of non-MMA fans look at the sport. Barbaric, crazy, not good, blah, blah, blah. So many other negative terms I could throw in there. For the UFC, not fantastic, because now Khabib and Conor, we don't know when they'll be able to fight again, probably sooner than later. But when the rematch does happen, whether it's right away or not, it will happen. And that this footage of the brawl, of the melee after the fight, is going to be used in their promotional footage. And it's going to be used a lot. And it's going to sell tickets. It's going to sell pay-per-views. It's going to sell everything. So in the long run, it's not even a bad thing for the UFC. Short term, not so great. Makes it look bad. Makes it, not what you want after the biggest fight in MMA history. Everyone was talking about the brawl. No one was talking about the fight. Long term, though, I don't think it's that bad.
Khabib kind of robbed himself of his own moment. Let's say you tap Conor, you stand up, and you pick him up off the canvas. That would have been more shocking than the brawl. Like, imagine if Khabib taps him, stands up, grabs Conor, gives him a hug, and that's, walks away. That would have been a more jaw-dropping moment than what happened. You know what I mean? Like, let's say he picks him up and says, "You tried, you got your ass whooped, it's over." And then they strap the belt on Khabib. Everybody's booing / or cheering, whichever. And he's got a moment where he can jump on that cage and say, "I just beat Conor. I just beat the biggest star that MMA has ever seen." That's a moment that a lot of fighters haven't had and won't have. That he calls himself the lottery fight. He is. I mean, he's the biggest star ever in what we love. He kind of robbed himself of his own moment. and he ultimately robbed himself of a lot of money. Like you said, they kept his $2 million purse and then gave him one. So that's telling you that they're probably going to keep that one. You know, they're probably going to fine him.
Well, I'm not sure about the million. Now they'll definitely, Khabib will definitely be fined. Conor will definitely be fined. It won't be the whole million, but
I could see it being close. You know how the commission is, man. Remember, they banned Nick Diaz for 5 years, Vanderlei for life. I could see them pulling something like a $500K fine, or damages to endangering a fighter's corner, man. Endangering fans, starting a riot. I could see them, and I don't know if you watched it, but the judge and the dude got up and said, "I have the right to keep it all." He got up and said,
"Oh yeah,
I have the right to keep all your win bonus, your show bonus, the pay-per-view points. I can keep it all if I want to." And he told Conor's team the same thing. He's like, I have it in my authority to keep everything if I see fit. They probably won't, and that would be an insane thing if they did. But I could definitely see them giving Khabib a year suspension and some crazy, insane 100K fine, 150K fine.
Oh, 100K is, I could believe 100K. Now, that's also a lot different than a million. So, the fine will be up there. The fine will be, a little hit to his 2 million purse, but
it's going to be a big chunk of change, especially for a fighter like Khabib. Khabib, I looked at his other fight purses. He got paid nothing compared to, this fight with Conor, obviously.
Oh, of course.
Because it's Conor.
I mean, as you said, Khabib, this was the biggest moment in his MMA career by a mile. I mean, there's nothing that can top this ever, really. Nothing he's done before has topped this at all, and now it's overshadowed by him jumping outside the cage.
I think they will rematch, though, but before we get into that, but real quick on Conor, I think, and just to put into, I'm sure you know his record, a lot of people don't. As soon as Conor lost, people were waiting to shit-talk him, mostly Russian fans and Khabib fans, but Conor McGregor is overall 9-2 in the UFC. He's only lost to two people, Nate Diaz and Khabib, and he rematched Nate and won. So he's only lost to one person inside the UFC that he has not then rematched and then won. So if you put it all together, he lost against Floyd, not his sport, a boxing match, and he did great. I watched that. I'm sure you did too. He did a fantastic against Floyd, way better than a lot of people thought he would. He lost to Nate and then went to war with Nate and won, arguably. It was close, super close, obviously.
Right. Yep.
And now we're just in a weird position where people think Conor's shit. They think he can't beat anybody. He's done. He can't fight again. Conor's 9-2 in the UFC. I believe Conor, and I'd like to get your opinion on this too. Here's what I think you do. I think you give Khabib suspended a year. Conor suspended a year, whatever. Conor only fights a little bit anyway. Conor comes back and fights Anthony Pettis. I think Conor's first fight back, give him Anthony Pettis. Let him knock out Pettis in round 1. Let him show everybody that I'm a dangerous striker. Let him KO Pettis. Then you do the Nate Diaz trilogy. And let's say Conor wins. Then you do the Khabib fight. And I've said this before with people I've had on the show, and I was right back when this was announced with Floyd. I said, let's say he fights Floyd and then he loses. And let's say he fights Khabib and then he loses. And let's say then he fights Nate and then he loses again. Let's say he loses his next 3 fights and then he retires on a 3-fight losing streak. Does that get rid of the fact that he KO'd Aldo in 13 seconds, the greatest featherweight ever? Does that get rid of the fact that he beat Chad Mendez, Dennis Seaver, Max Holloway, Nate Diaz, Eddie Alvarez? You know what I'm saying? Like, does those losses just completely erase all of his successes? The first ever 2-weight simultaneous world champion, the face of the UFC, the most popular Irishman ever. You know what I'm saying? It's kind of like Conor's lost his last 2 if you count Floyd and Khabib, and they're just writing him off. He's dead, he's gone, he'll lose every time now. Do you get that same feeling?
I don't actually. Maybe I haven't, been seeing the same people as you or talking to the right people, but I mean, people are definitely writing Conor off in some regard. Like, he probably doesn't beat Khabib in a rematch. Ferguson fight would be pretty close, but I think Conor right now is still clearly probably the second best lightweight. I would favor him against probably Tony Ferguson and pretty much everybody else, even a Dustin Poirier, even a Justin Gaethje, and Anthony Pettis. The list goes on and on, a Kevin Lee. So does he beat Khabib 9 times out of 10? No, he doesn't. But as we talked about earlier, not many people do. So
definitely, we're about done here. I'm glad. I'm very thankful for you coming on the show. Definitely thankful that you responded to me and agreed to come on. I'm gonna throw you a little bit of a curveball today. I showed you before we started. I've been calling, it's ever since the news broke out about Conor's whiskey, and originally the whiskey was called Notorious. It was called the Notorious Whiskey, and some brand sued him and said that he couldn't use the Notorious name, so he changed it from Notorious to Proper 12, and I have been calling every damn liquor store for miles. I live in Tennessee down here. I've been calling every liquor store for miles. And I don't even drink, me and my wife, we don't drink at all. I've drank one sip of alcohol in 3 years. So I'm not a drinker at all, but because it's Conor, I just wanted to try it. I've seen a lot of reviews, some bad, some good, saying it tastes bad, some saying it tastes like shit and horrible and smells like rubbing alcohol. But I just wanted to get it for myself, and I showed you. I went out and bought it. I don't know, have you looked up any reviews yourself?
I haven't looked up any reviews, but for the most part, just seeing people try it on, via Twitter and things like that, I've sort of gotten the same sense. Some people love it, some people like it, some people don't like it. I don't think anybody hates it, so I think for the most part, people...
all the proceeds are going to first responders. I don't know if it's all the proceeds. It says, we are honored to share with you the proceeds for every bottle sold goes. So I think probably a percentage, probably like a certain percentage of every bottle sold goes to firefighters, and I don't know if that includes cops but probably like firefighters and rescue teams and stuff like that. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, it is. I mean, Conor, to be fair, has been fairly generous with the amount of money he's made. I mean, he does a lot of donations and things like that. I know he made headlines for donating to a sick kid's GoFundMe page just recently. So a lot of things like that. So I think some people miss that from the good side of Conor McGregor in a way.
One thing I love about the bottle is it looks like a twist cap. Like if you can see, it looks like a twist cap.
Right.
And when you pop it, it's a cork. Yeah, it's a cork on top of like a Coke cap lid. That's pretty cool. But my honest opinion, when you open it, and people have said the same thing on it, when you open it and just first thing, pop that cork, it smells like rubbing alcohol a little bit. Like it smells a little bit like rubbing alcohol. And then once you let it sit for like 15 minutes, I let it air. You're supposed to let whiskey air. I let it air for 15 minutes. And I tried it warm, like at room temperature with no chill. And it's okay. Then I tried it with ice. I put some ice cubes in it, and it's better. Way better with ice. I got a Dr. Pepper to try like a mixed shot with Dr. Pepper. Wasn't good at all. I got like some mango fruit drink to mix it with it. It's really hard because on the bottle it says triple distilled Irish whiskey with vanilla, honey, and wood. So it's kind of hard like to go through a mall or a grocery store or something and find like a honey or vanilla drink. There's vanilla drinks, but like a honey drink, it's hard. So I was looking, and the one thing, I tried everything. The one thing that absolutely makes it amazing, that takes it from like a level 3 to a 7, is A&W root beer, because it's aged vanilla. You take the vanilla of the Proper 12. The Proper 12, it says on it with just a hint of vanilla. So it's just like, you can just barely taste that vanilla when you do a straight shot. But when you mix it with that A&W cream soda, with that A&W vanilla soda, it makes it so good. And if you do get it or try it, I highly recommend trying it with the A&W vanilla cream soda.
Definitely.
Oh, we lost him again. I'll get him right back. It might be my signal. It's storming here. It could be mine where it's storming outside.
Okay.
Yeah, but definitely, man. I was excited to do that too, to show everybody the Proper 12, because it's been going crazy. You know how the woman at the liquor store, when I went in and bought it, she said that It's sold in record numbers. That she said, I bought 5 cases and 2 cases were sold in 24 hours. And a case is, I think, 24 bottles. And you can only buy 1 bottle at a time, like 1 bottle separately. You can't buy a whole case. And she's saying that it's broke records on every platform everywhere.
Yeah. Hey, Conor McGregor. He can sell his whiskey. He can fight. He can do a lot of things.
I definitely appreciate you coming on, man, and it was a great podcast.
Yes, thank you for having me. I really appreciate reaching you.
Definitely, man. I'll message you when it's uploaded. I'm going to have to upload it. When it gets uploaded, I ain't going to take nothing out. You know, it's not edited. It's not changed. Everything we do is what you see is what you get. And just as soon as it's uploaded, I'll tweet it out and at you so you can tweet out to all your followers too.
Sounds like a plan. Thank you very much.
I appreciate your time so much, man. You be careful.
Have a good night. Bye-bye.
Whew, that was a good episode, guys. It might have been my connection that cut us out there, but it was like, cut out, click, we're back, gone, click, cut out. It was like that. But I definitely love Proper 12 with this. Keep that in mind. By itself, nasty. By itself at room temperature is nasty. By itself cold, pretty good. Good, not pretty good. By itself cold with a little bit of this, like if you still want it strong a lot, it's very smooth. It's not, I was expecting better. I was expecting way better. Here's that cork for all you guys watching. It's like a cork on a twisty lid. But I expected more. I expected it to be way better. It wasn't what I expected. But that right there makes it worth it. CM, Conor McGregor. Conor McGregor supports it, I support it. I'm a main supporter of Conor McGregor, have been forever. Watched all of his fights, have every single fight he's ever had on DVD except, you know, the most recent ones that haven't come out on DVD yet. I'm not a Conor dick rider. I picked him to lose against Khabib. I knew he was going to lose. But I support any and all things MMA. I love this shit. I love the sport of MMA, and I support everything MMA that is positive. Everything positive in MMA is good. There's no such thing as negativity when it comes to MMA. It shouldn't be. There is, but it shouldn't be. We should all embrace each other. We should all be friends. We should all get along and love. But it's not like that, of course. But I think it's slowly changing. The whole Khabib and Conor thing with the commission and the shit talkers. I think we're slowly going to see the WME money fight era faint away to back to what we should be. Back on track. By the ratings. By the systems. 1 fights 2. 2 fights 3. 3 fights 4. 4 fights 5. And so on and so forth. But anyway, this is Hank with Smoke Break MMA. I appreciate every listener, every subscriber, every liker. I appreciate you all.